All right, good morning, class. So like I said in my announcement yesterday, I wanted to do another little video for the end of this week just to talk about some rough draft stuff. Obviously, you have, some extended time to upload your rough draft. Get it up tonight, and then, we can take the next couple days to look at them and make some comments on them. I also want to talk about Blog 6, which I've had a few questions about. And so I want to just kind of launch right in. The first thing that I want to do is I want to take a look at our rough draft for today. And so your groups are now available for you to submit. Now here's the little prompt that I put on the rough draft submission. So what I've tried to do is I've tried to outline the basic goals for the lit review as a whole. And so your rough draft should reflect some of these, okay? So for this draft, you should start putting your sources in conversation with each other. To do this, you'll need to organize your sources in a way that makes sense and that should say, and group them together based on the relationships you see. Think about your Cornell notes. What connections did you see? Which articles contain shared keywords, for example? So the body of your lit review should do the following. So number one, it should prevent well-organized research. So think about that video I posted last week where I walked you through the sample. That individual had organized their research in a way that made sense. They started with like history stuff, then they moved into some gender stuff, and so everything was grouped together in a very sensible way. So number two, for each source, you should introduce the title and the author. So in your paragraph, and you go to, when you move into your first source or when you move into your next source, whatever, you're going to want to give me some basic context information. So tell me kind of who is speaking or what article you're going to be tackling. Now, whether you do that, outright and say like, in such and such article, such and such author says, or if you want to do some sort of like footnoting or something like that when you start to talk about the argument, which at the bottom of the page will just have the author and title, whatever it is. Number three, focus on the articles using quotes and paraphrase throughout. And so what I mean here is that I'm going to want to see you as you introduce your source and you introduce the main points the author is making, that you are using evidence from the text. You're not just telling me about it, you're showing me some things. So quoting and paraphrasing. Remember that you do still have to cite, paraphrase, so that we know that this information is coming from somewhere else. Use transitions between sources that illuminate the relationships you see. And so I've given you kind of an example. And so let's say I'm moving from number one to number two. So a sentence between paragraphs, like a topic paragraph for your next sentence, might say something like, similarly, author B suggests, or, author A disagrees with author B and instead argues, right? So it's just those simple little phrases and keywords that really knit everything together, that turn this in from, say, Cornell notes to a more synthesized body of research. Because what you're doing in those moments is you are showing that these are not just arguments that exist in a vacuum, that they are actually part of a larger conversation. The end of your lit review should include a proposal. So this is what I'll spend a couple minutes talking about today here in a minute. This proposal responds to the research you've gathered and presents your own ideas/approach to the topic. You could propose future or further research into the topic and outline what the research would do. You could propose a unique approach to the topic, one not voiced in your research. You could propose an extension to an existing argument by talking about how we could take an author's point one step further. And so what I mean by this is that when you get to the end of your lit review, you will have collected, a good body of work, and you can say, pretty convincingly that you are, an authority on this topic now, right? You've gathered a lot of research, you've synthesized it, you know what's going on. And this is where your voice can finally come in. So remember, throughout the lit review, you're not evaluating, you're not arguing, you're not supporting any of these authors. You're just presenting the facts. But down here in the proposal section at the end, this is where you can start to do those things. You could say, let's say we're talking about dental hygiene, and we're talking about the need for parents to help their kids improve hygiene or new techniques or something like that for improving child hygiene. You could come up with a way that you think would help improve, dental hygiene in kids. Or you could say like, if you didn't have a particular idea in mind, you could say that, all of the ideas presented are really good, but there's one in particular that I think we should pursue by doing X, Y, and Z. Or you could say, all of the ideas presented haven't worked yet, therefore we need to go in a new direction. And you could even say something like, the fact of the matter is all of these people out here are saying these different things, but we still don't have enough information to make a good decision. So I think we should do some more research. And then what would your research look like? Okay. So there's lots of different ways that you could go with. And I think that when we look at the example of the proposal here in a second, you might start to see that. At the end of the proposal, you'll outline your methodology. So in other words, once you tell me what you think we should do, I want you to tell me how you think we should do it. How would you make your proposal happen if you had the chance, and what kind of limitations do you think you might run into? And so, for example, let's say you wanted to conduct more research to learn more about the topic. You'd have to tell me, okay, well, how are you going to do this research? And it's all hypothetical, right? How are you going to do this research? What kind of questions would you ask? What kind of things would you be looking for? Stuff like that. Okay. So, again, because this is a rough draft, I obviously don't expect you to have all of this, but I want to see that you're starting to do some of this, right? What I'm really interested in seeing is that you're starting, I would like to see at least 2 sources, because I want to see you starting to do this stuff. I want to see how you're starting to knit these things together. And so get started on that first. Okay, so that is peer review stuff that we have available. And go back here. There we go. All right, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is if we go back down to this week's activities, I had some questions about Blog 6. Now, Blog 6 is now embedded under week 9, so you can link it there or you can link it wherever else you've been going to. Now, I've extended this because this is really forward thinking in starting to do the things that we're going to be doing in Project 4, and so I'm giving you until a week from tomorrow to complete it. But here it is, and so take your time. It's due November 4th. So for Project 4, you reach out to a member of your discourse community. As you conduct your interview, you will gather samples of genres used, and so I'm just asking you to think about a specific example used and describe it, essentially. So remember, when we're talking about genres, we're just talking about tools used to communicate. So kind of think back to what you did in Project 1, and you can pull one of those genres out that you discussed and kind of use it here. Okay. All right, so the one thing that I wanted to do, if we come down here, let's go back to week 9. Again, you'll notice, obviously, if you hadn't had a chance to look at them yet, please do so. We've got a student example of a lit review and a student example of a research proposal. Your assignment will kind of combine the two. So let's take a look at the research proposal, and I'll talk you through the major points. Now, this is from when the research proposal was its own specific assignment, and so we're going to talk about what's changed a little bit. Okay, so what you'll see here as you read through this is that it's doing some of the same things as the lit review. In fact, it's doing a lot of the same things. Up here, the introduction is largely the same. You're introducing the topic, you're introducing the problem, you're explaining why it's important. Okay, so that's kind of what your literature review is already doing. Then down here, let me do this so we can. Down here, you'll see that there actually is a lit review. So in the past, the lit review has been rolled into this assignment. So again, up until all of this, we're pretty much in the same boat, doing the same things. And this was another good lit review to look at for an example. Okay, so down here towards the end of the lit review, you'll see what you're going to be doing. You'll see that we start to have this author's own proposal and their own ideas. Okay, so let's go ahead and find the statement I'm looking for. Okay, there are factors should be taken. There are many factors, factors training. Okay, so you can see down here we start to get these like should do, we need to do kind of statements, right? So this is where this author is starting to interject their own ideas, right? And so they've been dealing with, let's go back up to the top real quick. They've been dealing with this overall topic, how the attitudes of those working within businesses have affected the effect, not a great title, of the sexual harassment training provided to them. So we're looking at sexual harassment training. Now we come down here and they've just collected a lot of research talking about this, and now we're getting the student's own opinion. Training should be put together to best help those who will be receiving it instead of just providing general training to the entire organization. Good. So this is kind of the start of a proposal thesis. For future training, companies need to make sure that they are providing training because they care about their employees, not just to protect themselves, and that sexual harassment will not be tolerated by anyone. Okay, and now we're starting to get into some specifics, specific kinds of training, et cetera, et cetera. So you'll see here that in this section, the author is outlining what they think should be done, and then they talk about their methods. Okay, so this is where I want you to pay attention as you go through. Again, all the methods are purely hypothetical, but they're good things. They're things that I want you to start to think about. All right, guys, so that's what I've got for you today. Get your rough drafts up. Take a look at the blog over the next week or so, and I will talk to you later. Bye.